It is the Boneyard Podcast, and it was a homecoming victory for the Wildcats. I'm Matt Mosley, Cory Campbell, head coach of the Wildcats, with me as always. And Coach, bye week, you put it to good use. Great atmosphere, everybody, all the moms. I know you get caught up in the pomp and circumstance of homecoming, but everybody was out there. It was a great showing, and I must compliment you. I was disappointed in the first pep rally because you did not commandeer the mic, but I liked your speech at the pep rally, and I thought it was a nice one, and it was a reminder to all the athletes who, are kind of just caught in the moment, but you gave them a little perspective. So I thought you did a really nice job there.
Yeah, homecoming week is always fun. There's a lot of stuff that surrounds it, circumstances that go into it, but ultimately the message to the kids was pretty simple all week of there's a football game to be played. Obviously, it's a very important one to open up district play, and a game like that against Pearce it was a huge game for us, ultimately the message to the kids was the Friday nights they run out. I'm on a text thread with some of my best friends that I went to high school with from Archer City, and we talk all the time. And there's a special bond that's created in high school athletics. And, I just wanted the message to be, hey, cherish it. Friday nights are running out, Tuesdays are running out, volleyball and cross country and things like that. And just cherish it.
I like when you remind us of the Archer City because that's why you're so well read. It's a book lovers community, so you're very familiar with all of that. Well, it was 55-49 victory, and we'll walk through some of the moments. But coming out of it, I know we were concerned after the last game. Christian Rhodes went out, and you really had to piecemeal that thing to kind of get through the game. To have him and for the most part, your full complement of players. I mean, I think that was a great thing to be able to start district that way.
Yeah, it was. It allows our offense to be complete. I think, as you mentioned, in that Flower Mound game when Christian went out, we just had to make a few changes, and being able to fire on all cylinders Friday night was nice to have, all the pieces back in place, and it allows us to be a little bit more multiple.
And I don't know if you ever purposely do these things, but like that was kind of cool because the long touchdown to Jordan Hutchison was he had the play that didn't go his way the game before, and then to hit him on that play, and then to watch it. It's interesting how different people catch deep balls, isn't it?
Sure.
Some people go close to their body. And I think he's more comfortable when he hands catch, which again I think is what you teach.
Yes.
But that had to be a good feeling for the staff, the sideline, and everybody to see him come through on a big play early.
Yeah, I think ultimately we start every practice with a little pat and go session, and it's kind of a warm up session. You're just getting loose and things like that. But it's a little thing that really turns into a big thing. And as a coach, it's fun to watch, kids practice those little things, and then on Friday night it turned into a big thing. We do coach, keeping it away from our body. We don't want to let it get up, in our equipment, our shoulder pads, top deal. And so it was fun to watch Jordan be successful on that catch.
Do you advocate folks wearing hoodies and thick, when it's hot out there, long sleeves? I guess whatever makes the player comfortable.
Yeah, I'm old school now, so
okay.
I try not to get too involved in our attire. Every week, our captains decide what we want to wear, and I stay out of those conversations.
Okay, and then some big plays, and I thought the defense early was doing some things for you, and Hollywood comes in, number 5 for people that are out there remembering, but they call him Hollywood, and it's a thing of beauty when your guys break on a ball like that, and
Sure.
It's smooth, and he's a player that's going to get more and more, I think, opportunities and get looks from people because he does feel pretty comfortable back there when the ball's in the air.
Yeah, it was big, you know, in a game like that, and a high-powered offense like Pearce has. You know, we were able to go down and put it in the end zone a couple times early, and then to get that turnover, you know, I felt like in that first half, that complementary football that you hear people talk about a lot, I felt like, you know, we were doing that, and he was a big part of that. You know, he was in the right place, made a play, got a little return on the reception, gives the ball right back to the offense who's having success.
All right, so the game is just, overall, y'all kind of get a big lead, and they're kind of, in your mind, they're out of it, and I guess it's one of those lessons. Hey, there's always that back door. You got to close it out. Everything. What was your overall message to the team? Because you had to be very pleased against a good team to open district, so you don't want to not be happy about a win, but knowing you having a 55-35 lead and then having it finish 55-49, there were some things you were probably frustrated with.
Yeah, I think it goes back to halftime. You know, we were 21-point lead at halftime, and just talking to the kids about a 0-0 mentality coming back out in the second half. And you know, from a play caller's perspective, when you're in that mode of you're down 3 touchdowns, you know, it's kitchen sink time. And I told our defense that, and I think that's what you got from Pearce in the second half. Make no mistake about it, they have a really good quarterback, a great complement of receivers, and they threw the sink at us in the second half. You know, 3 onside kicks. You know, we can talk about all the different circumstances that went into that, but you know, it was a game at the end, you know, that we didn't want to be in. You know, and I told the staff Friday night, you know, hopefully we'll be better for it going forward. You know, in all the different facets. I mean, we had an interception that we should have made that when the ball was tipped and then they catch it, and then they did kick 3 onside kicks. They got 1, but then they converted and scored on that. And so you look up and you're in a barn burner.
Yeah, and is that anything like on the one onside kick that allowed them to kind of get within 1 score or set them up to kind of to pull closer? What was the adjustments you made on that one? I think they went right up the middle. That's the old play where the kicker's almost trying to get it, kick it short enough to go get it. You know, in looking at that, what was the response, and what do you need to do differently on something like that?
Yeah, great question. So in the first onside kick, they went to their bench to what we call R1 or L1, and you know, we were successful. Mason Spangler made a play over there on the sideline, and we're able to get the ball back. And on the second one, they went to a different onside kick, and they kicked it right up the middle. You know, our alignment should have been a little tighter, really, is what it comes down to. We practice that every Thursday in our kick the field, in our hands team, our onside team, taking the safety, all the different things that could come into play on a Friday night. And they just hit it right up the middle on our alignment. But again, you know, like I spoke with Coach Wells this morning, again, it's a great opportunity for our kids, you know, to witness that and to see that, and for us to learn from that. And then in the third one, they went back to our bench, you know, a little cat and mouse game. They went back to our bench, and Leland was able to get on.
Yeah. And Leland had a big night. I would mention they kicked short on you a few times, and the young Meek, his dad's a longtime friend of mine, did a good job just calling for a fair catch on one of them. And I remarked, I said, I'd like to see what kind of running he could do. And on the next one, he did give it a little something. Yeah. What do y'all sort of say? Hey, if nobody's around and you can catch it cleanly, it's okay to run with it, or what those guys that are okay?
Yeah, great question. I think the first point is when we work that pooch kick in practice, the number one thing is we're going to secure the catch, and so we start with a fair catch, and then after that, if we feel like that we've got room, then we'll build off of that. He's there because we feel good about his hands. And if that ball goes over his head, we ask him not to back up. And so Hollywood was right behind him, and we asked him to come up. And so he did a great job. He did exactly what we asked him to do. He fair catches the first one, makes the catch, and the second one, he got up the field and made a few yards. So credit to him. And like I said, execution, what we practice.
Right. And you mentioned Leland pounced on that one late. You know, I do like watching have you noticed Harrison and Leland? Nobody interacts with the student body as much as those two, and they kind of feed off of them. I'm sure occasionally you caution some of the celebrations and everything, but for the most part, that's a lot of fun to see. Leland gets 2 touchdowns. First was a 22-yard touchdown. I want you to walk us through both of them, kind of what went into those plays. But I think with Leland, what we've seen the growth process. Obviously, he's been helping you since he was a sophomore and been a major part of this team. But to catch the football and use that height, the big German, I like to call him, which we used to call another great player around here. But to use his size and then catch it in traffic, that is, I mean, I think he just continues to get better in those areas. But that was a huge night for him.
Yeah. So in the first one, we were 3-by-1 in a trip set, and we've got a zone beater on one side. We've got a man beater on the other, and Harrison just reads the defense. And so we got the look that we wanted on that pocket scheme. And we took a shot to Leland in the end zone. And and we just got finished with video this morning, scouting report, and we went back and watched it. The thing that was so impressive about the catch is his body control. Harrison put it in a good spot down there in the end zone, and his body control and how he twisted. He made a great catch. And on the second one, it was a play action scheme where we got a big one over the top. And he's got a little under route, and he was able to make a great catch, and then 15-20 yard scamper into the end zone. So he had a big night, and so happy for Leland, the amount of work and time that he's put in, since the last 4 years, and to see some of that stuff pay off in a big game. A game where we really needed him to be him, and he was a big part of our success Friday night.
Then I saw him Saturday at Pictures before homecoming, and he had his costume on, and they were ready to go for Magic Night. Did you wear anything? Did you show up at the school dance or anything? I feel like that would have been really.
I showed up here and worked all day. That's what I did.
Okay. All right. And then some of the other big plays, Christian Rhodes goes for 66. And, you mentioned one of the things we talked about. And I actually watched it last week, away from the ball. Even when he's not involved, he'll go find somebody, even if it's trying to pick up a blitz or whatever. Beware if you come near him. But then when the ball is in his hands, I think because he's so tall, I think people I was watching the game with, there's this thought process that maybe he's one of those big straight up and down high runners kind of guy. But man, he can turn it on, and he's only going to get better. But this school functions best when it has a bell cow running back, and he appears to be that guy.
Yeah, he does. I think we've mentioned it before, and we kind of laugh about it and joke about it in our office. But he just he goes 100 miles an hour. You can't do a walkthrough with Christian Rhodes because he doesn't know how to walk through. And when you get on the field on Friday night, man, it's a great attribute to have. Just how he plays the game, but again, like you mentioned, how he plays the game when he doesn't have the ball. It's really something that we really try to coach, but and I'm not going to take any credit for that one. It's kind of his personality on the field.
Yeah, I think you ought to take all the credit. If you don't, Coach Haug will take a lot of the credit. I'm peeking around. I see some of the designs on the board here. We will not be able to show that on the Boneyard podcast, but as you have some mad scientists on the staff, don't you?
I'll say this. There were a couple times behind the scenes the other night. He was kind of tagging on me, "Hey, coach, do this. Hey, coach, do this," and we did it, and it turned out very well. So
really,
yeah. So hats off to Coach Haug and Coach Adamer and all of our offensive staff. They're doing a great job, and we're gonna have to go back at it this week as well.
I like that. And let's look at our offensive and defensive players of the week, and lots of candidates, lots of great homecoming candidates. As this was honestly, as crazy as it is for later in the season, being up 21 nothing, 28-7. I saw a game like that Saturday too. It looked like y'all might be headed to a place where you'd have to pull your starters. After having a bye, having a lot of time off, I think if you look at the silver lining, might not be the worst thing that you ended up having to grind it out a little bit.
Yeah, it was a long couple weeks. I mean,
Yeah.
when you lose a game in the last 3 seconds, and then you kind of have to simmer in that, so to speak, for a couple weeks because of the bye week. Um, I think right after the game, there was just a sense of, it wasn't really like relief in the victory. It was just, thankful for the opportunity to get back out there and get going again. And as you mentioned, the game could have went a lot of different ways. And the circumstances called for us not to pull the starters and for us to continue to have to play. And hopefully, as the season goes, that's going to not only, it's going to help us. And, ultimately, man, this district it looks like to me, it's going to be turned upside down. All these preseason, polls and all this stuff, we really don't look into it too much, but at the same time, man, you this week is, I believe, we've got Mac, I think, Jesuit and Pearce play. Last weekend, Richardson and Berkner played. And so, as we told the kids in scouting report this morning, you better come ready every week, because if you're not, you get knocked off. And, this is probably the most competitive the district has been since I've been here in 15 years. The teams are really good, and there's not a team that you're looking at going, they're out of it. They're not going to factor in. I mean, Richardson's really good. Berkner's really good. Pearce is really good. Jesuit's really good. I mean, so it's going to come down to who can prepare and be ready every Friday night.
I heard there was like maybe some player movement between Berkner and Richardson. I'll be kind of doing an investigation on some of that as we get ready there. But it is interesting because those two teams played a heck of a game.
Sure.
And I'm sure y'all were scouting that thing up. But that's you're right. All across the board, we saw with Pearce, you cannot take the foot off the gas, and they kept coming. And you had a lot of respect for them going into the game and knew they had a lot of talent. All right, walk us through. Let's start with the offensive player of the game for the Wildcats.
Okay, well, offensively for us, I mean, it was difficult. I'll say this, we don't get where we're at without that gutsy performance by our quarterback. There were multiple plays, and especially on third down. His efficiency on third down really, really helped us. We had a sprint out to the sideline that we threw to Jordan Hutchinson. He had a couple zone reads. We had one sprint to the left in a bunch formation that he went ahead and kept and got 8 or 9 yards, and those are all on third down. And, when you go back and you look at it, him allowing us to continue to possess the ball, move the change, to run the clock, all those things are huge. And so, I need to mention that, he had a hat trick. He threw 3 touchdown passes. And so, ran the ball really well. I thought it was his most complete game. Obviously, Christian, 23 carries, 220 yards, 4 touchdowns was unbelievable. And so both of those guys were in the factor. But our player of the game this week was Leland, Germany.
Leland, Germany, yeah, nice.
On one of Harrison's touchdowns we just watched this morning, things that don't get in the paper and the media. Man, we really challenged our guys about perimeter blocking, and he really answered the bell there. Obviously, he had his 2 big touchdown catches, and so just super proud of him. And we're going to need him down the stretch.
All right, one of your captains, and by the way, Harrison, what a huge first down that was at the end of the game. You needed to put that game away, and the way they were going, they were going to have another possession.
Correct.
And y'all ended it right there. And that's how you have to close the game out. Of course, Harrison. And then, after some of those big plays, he'll kind of give it a little first down signal there, and that inspires the fan. I don't know if you've had he's scrappy, he's tougher. You haven't had a lot of tougher players over the years, and you haven't had a lot of more like entertaining players.
I think we talked about it early on about when Harrison, when we were talking about him playing quarterback and stuff like that, and he hadn't done it in a couple of years. All the things that go into it, but one thing that we knew is, man, you want that guy on your team. You want to get in the huddle. I mean, when I called the play on third down after a timeout, I mean, I was just, the only thing you're not going to do is take it out of his hands.
Yeah.
And he wants it. And that competitor in him is, man, it makes him fun to coach.
Yeah. And, okay, on the defensive side, again, some big moments in this game. I can remember like the hook and ladder. They tried a little bit of a trickery, and it didn't work. And y'all were Johnny on the spot to grab another possession there. Who'd you single out there?
So I think as a unit, I think who we felt like played the best for us Friday night was our defensive line. And in a game like that, I mean, there's going to be there's so many passes, and then when we get specific, our junior Jordan Candoba is going to be our defensive player of the week. He had 4 tackles, he had a sack, quarterback pressure, played really well, and again, not a name that maybe a lot of people know, but played 10 ball games on the JV last year, and he's starting to come into his own a little bit, kind of like Michael Odolami-esque from last year. He's starting to come into his own a little bit, and we're super proud of him. So he's going to be our defensive player of the week, Jordan Candoba.
I like that. Okay, defensive player of the week, and now that he's been mentioned on the Boneyard podcast, he will not be able to hide at all. So he will be known. How about your unsung, kind of our unsung hero of the week? Which direction are we going there?
Yeah, our unsung this week, man, we have. I don't know if you remember, a few years back we had a Nemi Osa roller.
I do remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
And man, we have some lineage, and all the way down to Forest Meadow right now. I think the youngest brother is a skill player, plays some quarterback down at Forest Meadow, and then we have 2 of the older brothers here. And our unsung hero this week is going to be Oler Osaroler, also known as Junior, and he probably, if you ask our staff right now, man, he gave us an unbelievable scout look last week, made a bunch of plays on our secondary, and just is giving us a tremendous look, plays with a lot of effort, and he's a talented kid, and I wouldn't be surprised by the end of the season if he's not one of those kids that we reward, maybe later on, week 7, 8, 9, 10, that we, I mean, he's getting better every day because he's going against Hollywood and Aiden Webb and those guys. And I think it's going to pay off. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't move him up to the varsity later on in the season just because of what he's done in practice. I'm super proud of him.
I love that because on Thursday nights, man, freshmen JV are out there. Those are fun teams to watch. And I think for those players to hear that, hey, it's not just about those games, that it's I mean, this is a development program, and if they bring it in practice, they could get promoted. And we see it in all y'all sports, but especially football, those Thursday night games, and you'll see whether it be the quarterback or some of the defensive players, they stand out, and you start to get to see maybe the future of the program. And so that's fun. And it's a fun combination right now because you've got some extremely talented sophomores that are already helping you out. A couple of them are actually getting kind of starting time. So that's fun. Okay. MacArthur, you mentioned Mac. School has a proud history. In fact, our resident historian, Glenn Gant, was referencing that Kansas coach David Beatty was the team qualified for the postseason each of his 4 years before he headed to the collegiate level. And they've had some big moments. In fact, made their first ever trip to the Boneyard in week 3 of 1994 under coach Johnny Ringo, one of the great coaching names out there. And did he do some work for SMU at one point? I think, I can't remember exactly. Johnny's been around different places, but had a lot of success. And of course, people think of the movie Tombstone when you mention that name. But can you do any of the Johnny Ringo?
I can't, but I speak to Coach Ringo probably a couple times a month.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he's now involved with a letter jacket company. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he had some time down there on Mockingbird, obviously at Highland Park, but
Yeah.
at SMU as well.
Yeah. So anyway, great. So it's a really good lineage, and we think back, and Glenn was looking back at some of those games where Dexter Ford, who went off to Baylor, Marcus Stiggers, who went to Colorado. We get to see him. He's still working with a lot of your players. Obviously, Stephen Holly was. I mean, some of those guys were involved in these games, and boy, some of the great names from the past. Look at this: Blaine Banta, strong safety. Glenn Johnson was playing halfback. So looking back at some of those games and some of the great Wildcat teams, Devarin Mookie Hightower, that's another name you've heard over the years that went to Arizona State. But they back in '94, they held the Cardinals to 130 yards on the ground, 199 overall. And I think if y'all do that on Thursday night, this is a Thursday night game, you would be pretty pleased with that defensive performance. What do you have? This coach has been there about 4 seasons, I think now, and starting to show some signs and putting up some pretty good numbers. They obviously have some talented players. What do you expect Thursday night?
Yeah, Coach Nicholas over at MacArthur, they do a great job. They're going to be multiple on defense, especially. They're going to move in and out of an odd and even front, be a little multiple in the secondary. Offensively, they're going to try and run the football, some pin and pull stuff, moving guards, and then ultimately for us, you and I have kind of talked about this. We kind of set a standard in the summer of what our Thursday games is going to look like, and coming off a big win Friday night, and then getting back in here today with the kids for the first time. You basically got 3 days to get a game plan in and practice and execute that game plan. And so we have a plan. We go right to our Thursday game plan. And then, the next week we're going to play on Thursday again. So we get back to back. So that's a challenge this week. It's also a challenge for our sub-varsities. They're going to have to play on Wednesday, obviously, in that Thursday routine. And so, we're right back at it. And like I told the kids this morning, ultimately, and I know it's kind of coach jargon speak, but we're just on a 1-0 approach. That's kind of how, when we turned the page on our non-district schedule, our motto was, hey, let's go 1-0. And so, we've got to do that today at practice. And ultimately, we're going to try to go 1-0 this week. And that's kind of how we're going to take our district, mantra as we go.
All right, everybody get out there early. It can be a little tricky getting to Irving Thursday night in that traffic. Coach, you have a lot of authority over here. If you have some authority, like over the band, whatever their departure time is, let's get them out there. It's a little tough getting them out there on time sometimes. So, but we need to be out there. Everybody needs to be cranked up, and it's easy to get those tickets. Just get on line there and go to the Irving ISD. If you need to get a ticket, you can get those pretty quickly. So expect a big crowd. This team, Lake Highlands, travels extremely well. Want to get the students out there on a Thursday night, and so this is just another opportunity. It's kind of like what you talked about in your speech. Man, these are precious. Every one of these games, and let's hope you get a big lead. And some of those guys you were talking about that are a lot of times do some scout things. We'll get in there and get some time. But this is another opportunity to go out there. And I did want to mention, during homecoming week, there's a lot of people. I know the senior women's organization, they decorate the locker room for the players. There are gifts that the players, some of the money spent on that, I'm kind of trying to monitor a little bit closer, coming out of my household. But I think y'all had some breakfast perhaps that hopefully arrived for you. But it's kind of neat, whether it be the cheerleaders, Highlandettes, senior women's organization, everybody really this time of year gets behind the coaches and the players.
Yeah, it's truly special. The support last week was unbelievable. I mean, from Wendy Lucas and Libby Nicholson and our PAs with the football program. We had meals. The cheerleaders brought in breakfast. On a side note, Mr. Kirby, our boards have seen their better days. Our signal callers, where basically we have the shadow boards. That way you can't see our signals from the press box. And Mr. Kirby bought us brand new. He didn't have to do that. He went out of his way. And I'm missing a ton of people. But the support that comes from the community, from the school, from all these things is truly special. We talk about it all the time about there's just a sense of community here that's hard to explain. Man, we saw that last week. And so we're so thankful for those people and their dedication and their time that they give to one another.
All right. I saw one of those meals was from Tony's. If that happens again, please give me a holler. I'm not far away. And could Tony's Pizza and Pasta, one of my favorite places for many, many years over on Northwest Highway. I'll share, but I'd like to be a part of that. All right, Coach, congrats on the win. Starting off district the right way. Let's get to 2-0 this week. And was fun seeing one of your kids on the sideline, your son down there, and he and Hadimer, man, they kind of run that sideline. So I'm surprised he wasn't sending in some plays for you. But if I thought hard enough, I could think what jersey he had on. It might be 63 or something. But they were in charge down there on the sideline. So great to see the coaches' kids and the coaches during the bye week. Coaches were featured, and that was really neat too.
Yeah.
Trey was featured, by the way. I need to mention my man Trey is the homecoming. I guess some of the faculty. Forgive me, the homecoming queen on the faculty. It's not coming to me, but I did notice Trey with the crown. I mean, is he keeping the ego in check?
Yeah, every time we talk about Trey, it just reminds me of how old I am. Coached him in 2010 or 11 or whatever year that was.
Yeah,
he's an unbelievable coach on our staff, and he got some kind of award, and it just makes me feel old every time I have to think about that. But
you'll feel younger if you'll just flip your cap around backwards like Trey and some of those guys do. That'll really do it. Flip that visor around backwards. For Cory Campbell, I am Matt Mosley. We will see you at the Boneyard.
We are Rogue Media Sports.